On the day Nathaniel returned to the country, Twitter was filled with photos of him at the airport. He is the youngest entrepreneur of his generation, having made it onto the Forbes list at just 25 years old. That evening, he was also invited to a high school reunion. As the gathering was winding down, an old classmate who had had a few too many drinks mentioned my name. Everyone knew that Isabella wasn't there that night, and if she had been, who knows how much she would have regretted it. Everyone remembered that when I was 18. I broke up with Nathaniel because I thought he was poor, which had deeply hurt him. Many people might have been waiting to see me humiliated. But Nathaniel? I've been gone from this world for 5 years. I floated around him like a ghost, witnessing firsthand how he paused mid-raise of his glass after hearing those words. He's no longer the young high school boy he once was. Now, everyone around him has to watch his every move. Nathaniel's small gesture has already caught the attention of many people. Soon, someone gently tapped the man on the back of the head and said, "You're drunk and still so confident. Why bring her up?" Nathaniel was truly sorry. He had drunk too much. The speaker was the former class monitor, who had once looked down on Nathaniel, the only child from a single-parent family, during their 3 years of high school. Now, he looked bloated, with a fawning smile on his face, bearing no resemblance to the confident young man he once was. Nathaniel froze for a moment, then continued drinking, the crimson liquid staining his lips. "It's okay, it's in the past." This sentence instantly heated up the atmosphere again. Everyone raised their glasses to celebrate his success, hoping that Nathaniel would remember their old school friendship and help them out. I looked at Nathaniel, who couldn't even be praised by the school leaders when they visited, and now he could communicate freely among everyone. It really made me feel that time flies. Over the past 5 years, I had been by his side, witnessing his journey from having nothing to achieving success. From being looked down upon to gaining everyone's recognition, Nathaniel's path had not been an easy one. I understood what had driven him to where he was today. After the gathering, Nathaniel stood alone at the restaurant entrance waiting for his driver. He pulled out an old phone from his suit pocket. There was only one text message on it, which I had sent him when I was 18. "Nathaniel, if you succeed by the time you're 25, maybe I'll give you another chance." Looking at the 18-year-old Isabella, she was so confident. I couldn't help but smile, only to notice a faint smile on Nathaniel's lips as well. He gently swiped the screen, looking at the young face of the girl. His voice low and soft, as if speaking to himself, "Isabella, I'm back. I'll keep our promise." Over the past 5 years, Nathaniel had never mentioned my name once. I thought he had forgotten me, but it turned out he had simply buried me deeper in his heart. Souls cannot shed tears, but I could feel a part of my heart had been torn out, leaving a cold, numbing sensation, as if a chill had been blown into it. November in New York was bitterly cold, enough to make one shiver. Nathaniel had just returned from abroad, and work kept him busy, but he refused all dinner invitations. The next day at noon, he changed into a simple hoodie and jeans, holding a bouquet of white roses, and headed to the suburban sanatorium. I followed him, step by step. When he opened the ward door, Nathaniel looked at his reflection in the glass, adjusting his hair, looking a bit nervous. The ward was spotlessly white. By the window sat an elderly woman with snow-white hair, gazing out at the distant green mountains. "Mom," Nathaniel's voice trembled, making me feel tense as well. The woman turned her head. Though her face was wrinkled, her eyes were as bright and clear as a baby's. Tears quickly welled up in Nathaniel's eyes. He almost threw himself onto her knees, sobbing softly, feeling his mother's love. I stood beside him, meeting the woman's gaze. Those eyes looked both familiar and strange. This wasn't the first time I had seen her. The first time I met Nathaniel's mother was in the second semester of my freshman year of high school. At that time, Isabella was indeed as proud as her name suggested, like the most beautiful swan on a lake. I had always disliked socializing and was used to being alone at school. I felt that ordinary people weren't worthy of being my friends, but even swans have their sad moments, like when no one remembered my 16th birthday. After school, I couldn't help but hide in a cafe outside the school and cry. Nathaniel's mother appeared at that moment. She was a sanitation worker, seeing me crying so bitterly. She quietly handed me a tissue. Her eyes looked a bit blurry, as if shrouded in a gray mist. At 16, Isabella was still confused by others' kindness and concern. She clutched the tissue tightly, hummed softly, and muttered some sharp words to protect herself. I don't need this cheap tissue. Who knows if it'll scratch my face? My face is pretty valuable. But since you're being sincere, I'll reluctantly thank you. Would you like something to drink? It's on me. I'm rich, you know. Just then, Nathaniel suddenly flew out from a corner, his skinny body nearly knocking me and my coffee out of my hands. He spread his arms wide, like a small animal protecting the woman in front of him, and glared at me with a fierce expression. Don't bully my mom. I actually had some recollection of Nathaniel, though he always seemed so arrogant. After all, we were classmates. Is she your mom? Nathaniel continued to stare at me intently, showing no signs of relaxing his guard even after I recognized him. Later, I realized that many classmates had approached his mother under the pretense of being his friends, only to bully her due to her intellectual disability, leaving her feeling helpless and vulnerable in their presence. That day ended with me buying Nathaniel a cup of coffee and sharing a pizza together. From that day onward, Nathaniel and I seemed to share an unspoken secret. The coffee shop hidden in the alley became our little haven. Nate is back. A woman's stuttering voice snapped me back to reality. She gently stroked Nathaniel's hair, her face glowing with joy. Nathaniel wiped the tears from his face, smiled, and nodded, saying, "Yes, Nate is back. Mom, we'll never be apart again. Isabella, and Nate, you must always be the best of friends." I clutched the clothes on my body tightly. Nathaniel's smile suddenly froze. The only sound in the hospital room was the woman's voice, calling out repeatedly, "Isabella." I replied, "I'm here, Auntie, I'm here." I bent down, wanting to get closer to her, wanting to snuggle into her MTKS, but I couldn't do it anymore. "How's the investigation going?" Nathaniel stayed with Auntie in the hospital room all afternoon until the sun set before leaving. His secretary had been waiting in the car for a long time. Nathaniel closed his eyes and asked in a low voice, "Nathaniel, this happened 5 years ago. It might be difficult to investigate. Please handle it as soon as possible." Nathaniel furrowed his brows with obvious dark circles under his eyes. Over the years, he had been spinning like a top, never stopping. Even a robot would eventually grow tired. I couldn't help but gently touch Nathaniel's forehead. He seemed to feel it and opened his eyes. For a moment, I even felt like our eyes met. "Also, can you help me find someone? Isabella?" He seemed to still remember me. I gently rested my head on Nathaniel's shoulder and closed my eyes. Hiding it from him for 5 years was the limit of what I could do. "Nathaniel, tonight's dinner is with the Williams family's daughter." Nathaniel was tying his tie when he heard this. Stopped and furrowed his brows. "The Williams family's young lady, all right. Nathaniel, Olivia Willia MTKS Olivia." Seeing her, the corners of my mouth involuntarily curled upward alongside Nathaniel's. I don't have many friends. If Nathaniel counts as a friend, Olivia is the second and last one. She's also the only one who knows about the incident when I left. Fortunately, before I left, I had repeatedly urged Olivia not to tell Nathaniel about it, hoping she would keep her promise. However, upon seeing Olivia for the first time, I realized how utterly wrong I had been. Her face was almost entirely filled with disgust toward Nathaniel. Nathaniel was still acting like a businessman, cutting his steak with his head down, his voice blending with the cello's melody, sounding particularly enchanting. What does Olivia think of this? The entire evening felt like torture. Olivia was eating with her knife and fork, making a piercing sound. Nathaniel misunderstood. "I just don't like you businessmen." Nathaniel looked up, smiling like a clever fox. He said, "Really, I think Olivia is interesting. Actually, back in high school, I thought she was really beautiful." Almost as soon as Nathaniel finished speaking, I sensed something was off. He was lying. In high school, the person he disliked the most was Olivia. Olivia wasn't in the same school as us, but she insisted on coming over every weekend to chat with me, no matter the weather. This made it hard for me to spend time with Nathaniel on weekends. When he found out about Olivia, his first question was, "Olivia? Just send her away. A goddess? That's unlikely." But clearly, Olivia believed him. She placed the knife on the table and suddenly stood up, the chair scraping against the floor with a piercing sound, making me involuntarily furrow my brows. "Nathaniel, I've always known you're not a kind person. You were still thinking about her before Isabella died. You're such a terrible person. Even if Isabella became a ghost, she wouldn't forgive you." She was right. Even if I became a ghost, I wouldn't forgive Nathaniel. "What did you say?" What do you mean you were thinking about me even as I was dying? Nathaniel's voice sounded hesitant. I dared not turn around, closing my eyes and taking a deep breath. Olivia across from me was a bit angry, muttering under her breath. Really, you didn't even do what he asked you to do? Isabella must be so disappointed in me. How could that be? I clearly remember the day I died. Olivia was crying so hard. What do you mean? Thinking about me as you were about to leave, I trembled slightly, and finally turned back to see Nathaniel's eyes reddened. His hands, resting on the table, were clenched into fists, and his lips were pressed tightly together, almost forming a straight line. Nathaniel, I died in the harsh winter of my 20th year. That year, you had just returned from your second year abroad. Olivia realized that no matter how hard she tried to salvage the situation, she couldn't bring herself to say those words again. So she chose to give up. She sat back down in her chair, her posture more relaxed, her legs crossed as if they were about to rest on the table. Yes, Isabella had passed away 5 years ago. What were you doing at that time? Nathaniel, you were spending her money to study abroad and enjoy life in a foreign country. What was Isabella doing at that time? She was busy waiting tables and working, enduring your resentment. Olivia's voice was mocking, and I hurried forward to cover her mouth, trying to stop her from saying those hurtful words. But it seemed to have no effect. Nathaniel's body trembled uncontrollably, his eyes red and swollen, as if he were about to burst into tears. Even so, Nathaniel stubbornly shook his head, muttering to himself, I don't believe it, I don't believe it. She's Isabella. How could she be dead? This can't be true. You're lying. I know Isabella changed her mind. She must have changed her mind. She must have fallen in love with someone else. Nathaniel's voice drew the attention of everyone else in the hall. They all stared at him with curious, confused, and pitying expressions. Looking at this man who seemed trapped like a beast, I stood beside Nathaniel and gently stroked his face. I had long since understood that Nathaniel couldn't accept the fact that I was dead. I never thought that after all these years, he would still be in so much pain. Olivia sneered and said, Nathaniel, do you really think that throwing a tantrum here will bring you back to the past? It's impossible. It'll never happen in this lifetime. I've never hated Olivia's mouth so much. Nathaniel suddenly stood up, stormed out, still muttering under his breath. I don't believe it, Isabella. This must be your doing. Trying to make me look bad. When I find you, you'll be in trouble. I followed Nathaniel, listening and could only sigh helplessly. But Nathaniel, you'll never find me again. In this lifetime, you'll never find me. Nathaniel didn't return to the newly purchased villa, but drove around aimlessly, before finally stopping in front of an alley. He got out of the car and leaned against the door, smoking. I knew this place. It used to be where Nathaniel lived. Further inside was an old apartment building. During high school, Nathaniel and his mother had lived there. I lived in a distant villa district, a place symbolizing luxury and wealth. Hey, isn't that Nate? You're back. Auntie Linda walked past Nathaniel carrying a vegetable basket, then turned back to look at him closely, before greeting him excitedly. She was Nathaniel's former neighbor. A particularly enthusiastic woman who could sometimes be a bit much. Thinking about it, I hadn't seen her in ages either. Auntie Linda was still the same as she was years ago. Always smiling, though she looked a bit older now. Nathaniel immediately extinguished the cigarette in his hand, and just like in high school, smiled shyly at Auntie Linda and said, Auntie Linda, you look so different now. I heard from my son that you're doing business abroad. Is it going well? Are you getting used to living alone? No one's been bullying you, have they? Auntie Linda didn't feel any stranger to Nathaniel after their reunion. She immediately grabbed his hand, as if they had never been apart. Nathaniel had only been out for a day of classes. I looked into Nathaniel's eyes, and many memories flooded back. You see, Nathaniel, the people who truly care about you only care that you eat well, dress warmly, and live happily. There are many people in this world who care about you, so let go of me, Nathaniel. Auntie Linda kept pulling Nathaniel to her home to sit for a while. The old apartment building had no elevator, so the two of them climbed up floor by floor. The old staircase creaked with each step, making the sound a bit uncomfortable to hear. Finally back at the front door, Auntie Linda wiped the sweat off her face and pulled out the keys to open the door. Just then, she seemed to remember something. She looked up at Nathaniel and asked softly, Do you remember the little girl named Isabella who was with you in high school? How is that little girl now? I haven't seen her in 5 years. Sigh after she left, she actually bought the small house across the street and moved in. She's really good to you. You must treat her well. My heart tightened, and I turned my head to see Nathaniel's face looking particularly pale in the dim light. Auntie Linda has a key that I left her 5 years ago, which can open the house across the street. At that time, I was living here alone, always worried that if something happened, no one would be there to handle it. So I decided to give Auntie Linda a key, never expecting that this would actually happen. But at least I passed away in a bustling hospital. The door, which hadn't been opened in 5 years, slowly creaked open with the sound of old iron, and Nathaniel and I stood at the entrance, looking into the small room inside. Dust floated in the air, untouched by a broom. I turned my head to look at the silent Nathaniel, then carefully reached out my hand, wanting to hold his. Just as I had often imagined, standing here hand in hand with Nathaniel, speaking to him proudly and playfully as I once did. Nathaniel, I was completely devoted to you. Look, I used all my money to buy this house. Do I love you that much? But after that, I never had the chance to say those words again. Nathaniel and I never ended up together. Nathaniel stood at the door for a long time before finally walking inside. After moving into this house, I hardly touched any of the original furniture and didn't add much else. At the time, I was too busy trying to make ends meet to think about the past. Life was good. The most obvious change was the wall directly opposite the entrance. I stood next to Nathaniel and looked up at the photo with him. Nathaniel, this is the only photo of the two of us, taken on your 18th birthday when I forced you to take it. If I had known we'd be apart for so long, I should have taken more photos, so we wouldn't have just this one in the end. Before I could finish speaking, I heard Nathaniel's suppressed sobs. He was crouched on the ground, a man worth billions, hugging his knees like an abandoned child, crying so pitifully. I wanted to hug him and comfort him softly, but every time I reached out, it felt like my hands couldn't pass through him, like I couldn't grasp him, finally. I was too exhausted to move, so I bent down and curled up beside Nathaniel. Don't cry, Nathaniel. I'm here, I'm with you. Isabella, I no longer hate you. I've forgiven you. Come back, Isabella, Isabella. Nathaniel, it's been 5 years and I've never left you. That night, Nathaniel fell asleep in that dusty little house. The next day, when his assistant saw him, he was covered in dirt, and his once elegant suit jacket looked like a worn-out rag. His eyes were swollen, as if he'd been hit several times. I watched the assistant standing beside him, seeming to want to say something but hesitating. I couldn't help but laugh out loud, then tapped Nathaniel's shoulder with my finger. Did you see that, Nathaniel? Look at your assistant's expression. It's really hard not to laugh. Nathaniel sat in the car, his face expressionless, staring straight ahead. How did you handle the matter I told you about yesterday? Nathaniel's tone was cold, as if the person who had cried so bitterly last night wasn't him at all. I found this rather pointless, so I rolled my eyes and sat directly on his head. The assistant took out a neatly organized file from the folder and handed it to Nathaniel. It contained records of everything that happened before I died. He would have to face these things eventually. I had long understood this truth, but I still hoped this ending could come a little later. Just a little later. Nathaniel didn't open the file immediately. Instead, he placed it on his lap. I noticed the folder in his hands had turned slightly white. Nathaniel, there's a meeting this morning. Okay? Nathaniel looked exhausted. Many times I wanted to tell him to relax, that it was okay, that he didn't need to push himself so hard. But I knew Nathaniel couldn't hear me. Everything had been decided the moment I pushed him away when I was 18. By the time the meeting ended, it was already 12:30 p.m. Nathaniel hadn't eaten much since morning. As soon as we stepped out of the meeting room, I started chatting with him. Nathaniel, go eat something? Aren't you going to eat? Do you want to starve yourself? Everyone knows that domineering CEOs all have stomach problem. MTKS, do you want to be a domineering CEO with a stomach problem too? Go eat, Nathaniel. Go eat. Maybe my kindness moved the heavens because Nathaniel actually stopped. Go buy me some lunch. Sure, Nathaniel. That's more like it. I felt proud of myself for taking care of Nathaniel's health, and even walking felt lighter. Actually, I've always walked lightly because I'm a ghost. But when Nathaniel sat down and opened the documents, the smile on my face vanished instantly. The office door was knocked on. It was the assistant who went to buy lunch. I walked over to see what was in the takeout box. What are you having today, Nathaniel? Why bell peppers again? I hate bell peppers the most. Did you forget? Can't you eat something like fried chicken burgers? It's so annoying. I haven't eaten that since I died, I muttered to myself in front of the assistant, but I kept hearing the sound of things falling behind me, but I dared not turn around. I dared not look at the pain and despair on Nathaniel's face. I could only ignore the sounds and continue talking to myself. Nathaniel, you won't get fat from eating this. You're too skinny now, you don't look well. Just as I was about to continue, I heard Nathaniel calling my name. Isabella, you're such an dishonest person. I'm sorry, Nathaniel. I've let you down again. In New York, there are many wealthy and powerful families, but the Williams family is considered relatively ordinary. Though we do have our own unique qualities. Why ordinary? Because we haven't become wealthy enough yet. Why unique? Because my parents' story has become a joke among many people. My mother was already pregnant with me when she married my father. So my father has never been entirely certain that I am his child. After I was born, the man who had once been so determined to marry my mother might have been deeply hurt, and he started coming home late at night. My mother wasn't interested in my father either, and didn't have much affection for me. She started dating many younger men outside the home. They only acted harmonious in front of others. Although I am the only child of the Williams family and the sole heir, I feel like an abandoned child. Later, I met Nathaniel, a boy completely different from me. Though he had no money and no complete family, he had his mother's unconditional love. Heaven knows how jealous and sad I felt every time I saw Nathaniel and his mother being so close. At 18, it was a crucial time for making life choices. My grades weren't good, and I was far behind Nathaniel. After the final mock exam in senior year, I overheard Nathaniel talking to his teacher. The teacher told Nathaniel that there was an opportunity to send him abroad for further education, and it was a very good school, a rare chance. But Nathaniel refused. I knew why. He wanted to take care of his mother, who had some special circumstances, and support his family. Most importantly, Nathaniel didn't have enough money. I had this thought. I hoped Nathaniel could have his own future, but I knew he wouldn't accept my help. His pride is too strong, and it's hurting him. At 18, he doesn't yet understand how to protect his pride while also gaining more. I thought I had more time to help Nathaniel understand this. But I was wrong. Building a skyscraper takes years, but it can collapse in a single night. The Williams family went bankrupt because the father made a bad investment and followed unreliable advice from others. He ended up in prison, and most of the Williams family's assets were used to pay off debts, leaving only a few $100,000 for me. I made a decision that was very important to me. Though it may seem irrational to others, it felt like a liberation to me. I used those few $1,000,000 to anonymously donate the money to Nathaniel, allowing him to go abroad. With the remaining funds, I sent Nathaniel's mother to a nursing home and purchased the small house. I understand that my son will eventually soar freely in the blue sky, spread his wings, and the pain and despair he once endured will become memories of the past. On Nathaniel's 18th birthday, we made a wish together. No matter what the future holds, I hope to keep moving forward bravely, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep going. The only one who could keep going was Nathaniel. Hardships in life always come hand in hand. At 18, my father went to prison, and my mother packed her things and left with her lover, not even glancing at me before she went. At 20, I was diagnosed with brain cancer. The cancer progressed too quickly. Before I could even react, my body felt like a broken machine, devoid of all vitality, lying in the hospital bed unable to rise. The late stages of brain cancer are excruciatingly painful. I lost all sense of dignity, lying in bed like a pig awaiting slaughter. Olivia cried uncontrollably every day. I stared out the window at the tree branches, their leaves slowly falling away. When the first snow of winter fell, I asked Olivia to help me say a few words to my father. But he didn't respond. I knew he still didn't love me. That night, I completely gave up on myself, even though the world I lived in had already plunged into darkness. Nathaniel held my death certificate in his trembling hands. His face was covered in tears, sitting on the ground, looking utterly despairing, as sorrow overwhelmed him like a tidal wave. I didn't say a word, just stood there in front of him. After a long time, Nathaniel seemed to suddenly think of something. He tried to get up from the ground but fell back down. Finally, he crawled over to the side and picked up the phone that had fallen on the ground. "Olivia, where is Isabella's grave?" Nathaniel's voice sounded hoarse. I sighed and lowered my head. Why do you have to do this, Nathaniel? Is it really necessary? No matter how you look at it, I'm gone and I won't be coming back. But Nathaniel has always been a stubborn person. Just like in high school, when people talked behind our backs about our relationship, accusing him of being my follower, trying to cling to me to change his life. I was furious when I heard it, but Nathaniel stopped me. He said that no matter what others said, as long as we did our own thing, they would eventually calm down. Nathaniel never cared about others' opinions and always stuck to his own path. So even though Olivia initially rejected him, because her family's company was being suppressed by Nathaniel, she soon had to compromise. Until at the cemetery gate, Olivia's eyes were filled with anger toward Nathaniel. Nathaniel, you're such a despicable person. Nathaniel didn't respond, just clenched his fist tightly. I didn't know what he was holding in his pocket. Since Nathaniel found out about my death, I've been losing consciousness more and more. I know I won't be here much longer. This is the first time I've seen my own grave. Olivia has been handling all the arrangements for my funeral. From the moment I closed my eyes until now, I've been by Nathaniel's side the whole time. Thinking about it now, I feel a bit guilty toward Olivia. The flowers at the headstone looked beautiful, probably delivered yesterday. Olivia was clearing weeds at my grave and whispered, I come here every day to see you. You know I'm always a little afraid to be alone. But even though I come so often, she never visits me in my Drea Emtekes, to be honest. Nathaniel, is she only looking for you? I felt a bit embarrassed and gently touched my own nose. Nathaniel just stared blankly at my photo and shook his head. She hasn't appeared in my dreams either. Because I've always been by your side, you fool. He looked at my photo, then suddenly pulled out a red velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a sparkling diamond ring. Under the shocked gazes of Olivia and me, Nathaniel knelt down on one knee before my grave and asked, Isabella, will you marry me? This might be the strangest scene ever, making me blurt out a curse word. Nathaniel, what the hell is going on? Olivia said the same thing. She grabbed Nathaniel's arm, trying to pull him up from the ground, but she couldn't resist his strength. Nathaniel's body tilted slightly, but quickly stabilized. He looked at my photo, his eyes filled with focus and deep affection. Even his tone carried a hint of a smile, as if the tombstone before him wasn't mine, but the real me, Isabella. Think about it. We've never truly been together. I had planned to confess my feelings to you formally at high school graduation, but I never made it that far before leaving the country. Later, I thought I'd wait until I'd achieved success in my career and returned home to find you, so you'd have no reason to refuse me. But I was wrong again. You can't even hear my heart anymore. So, Isabella, let's skip the dating process. Will you marry me, no matter what happens, no matter where you are now? Isabella, marry me, this lifetime. I only want to love you. I saw Olivia raise her hand to hit him, but her right hand paused in midair before slowly dropping down. Her eyes were red, her lips trembling, and finally she turned her head away. I looked at Nathaniel and couldn't help covering my mouth. It really was Nathaniel. He had always been someone who only believed in tangible things. Isabella, you were right before. There is cause and effect in this world, and there are souls that cannot let go because of their obsessions. If you can't let go of me either, Isabella, please tell me, okay? His voice was hoarse, and he held the diamond ring in his trembling hands, then slowly began to lower his head toward the ground. Isabella, how could you bear to do this? Yes, I really couldn't bear it. That was me. Even in my final moments, I wanted him to live a peaceful, happy, and healthy life. How could I possibly let him go? Not far away, a few maple leaves drifted down, gently floating toward Nathaniel, and finally landed on his ring. Nathaniel stared blankly at the maple leaf, slowly clenching the ring on his ring finger, and began to cry. Isabella, I miss you so much, Isabella. Don't leave me. Please, don't abandon me. Facing all this, I could only silently embrace Nathaniel through the air. He buried the ring at the foot of my grave. Later, a small diamond ring appeared on my ring finger. Nathaniel stayed at the cemetery until late that night, talking about his time abroad. Nathaniel didn't know that I had always known about these things, because I had always been by his side. Later, his assistant's phone call woke him up. Nathaniel, we found the doctor who performed the corneal transplant surgery on your mother. Nathaniel's eyes lit up instantly. He gently stroked the photo on my tombstone and said softly, I'll come visit you again tomorrow. But I knew that after he left this time, he might not come back for a very long time. For him, All of this was simply too much to bear. The doctor, who was in his 40s, refused to reveal the donor's name after learning why Nathaniel had come to see him. He said it was his duty as a medical professional. Nathaniel had no choice but to hand the doctor a bank card. If that's the case, could you please give this money to him? After all, he helped my mother, and I'd like to offer him some comfort. The doctor looked at the card for a long time, then shook his head and said, "I'm sorry. Sir, the donor passed away 5 years ago." Nathaniel, who had been smiling politely, froze in place. His voice sounded strained, as if he were forcing the words out of his throat. I heard it might have been brain cancer. After leaving the doctor's office, Nathaniel didn't say a word. I couldn't tell how he was feeling, so I stayed by his side. He refused the assistant's offer to go with him and drove alone to the nursing home. When he arrived, he saw his aunt already asleep. Nathaniel stood quietly by the bedside, silently staring at her face. After a long time, his aunt finally woke up from her sleep and opened her eyes. Nate is here. Where is Isabella?" Her eyes seemed to see only Nathaniel. Nathaniel suddenly knelt by the bedside, placing his head on his aunt's abdomen, looking helpless, like a child who had been wronged outside and came to seek comfort from his mother. "Mom, Isabella can't come back anymore." His tears quietly flowed down, and his aunt didn't understand why he was so sad. She gently stroked Nathaniel's head. "Nate, don't cry. Nate, don't cry. Nate, be good." I followed her example, placing my hands over my aunt's hands and gently stroking Nathaniel. "Nathaniel, don't cry. Now, there's only you in my eyes." Sometimes I would accidentally fall asleep, but after that day when Nathaniel had a breakdown, he seemed to have recovered and was working late at the office every day. I realized that I would soon have to leave, but one day when I woke up, I saw Nathaniel lying on the bed, unresponsive. There was a deep wound on his left wrist, so deep that the bone was visible. "Isabella, I finally found you." I suddenly turned around and saw Nathaniel standing behind me. He walked toward me with a smile on his face and hugged me. This was the first time Nathaniel and I had ever hugged. It wasn't passionate like in novels, and there was no sound of heartbeats. It was just a hug between two translucent souls, with no feelings at all. But even so, I felt something special. I had fulfilled all my wishes. "Nathaniel, what are you doing?" He held me tightly, unwilling to let go. "Don't worry, Isabella. I know you didn't want me to be in danger, so I called an ambulance in advance. I'll be fine, Isabella. I missed you so much." "Isabella," I couldn't hold on any longer. "I just wanted to see you, even if it was just for a moment." His head rested on my neck. Though souls cannot shed tears and there was no heartbeat, I still felt a faint ache. I reached out and gently patted Nathaniel's back. "I promise you, Nathaniel, we will meet again someday. Really, really." He finally gave a bitter smile and extended his little finger. I smiled and hooked it. 2 diamond rings sparkled in the bedroom light. Isabella would always be by Nathaniel's side until they met again.